What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Money Mondays, your weekly dose of financial information, which is going to allow you to be more profitable just like that as a dentist. And we are going to jump straight in today with all the different types of ISAs covered comprehensively, but still bite-sized enough that you can understand it all in one webinar. So without further ado, let us jump straight in. Here we are, Money Mondays, episode number 6, I believe, off the top of my head. And these are all of the types of ISAs all under one roof so that you can know your options when it comes to investing in an ISA. Remember, an ISA is personal finance, not via your limited company, not a pension. It's an individual savings account. So what that means is that it'll be money that you can invest in your personal name. And usually most ISAs are flexible in when you can get your money out, with a few little caveats and twists on that. So we will delve into that in further detail as we progress. Not financial information, as I must say every week. It is my obligation to say that. Okay, so what are the different types of ISAs? There's actually 4 fundamental ones. Then after that, you've got your junior ISA, and there's also a Help to Buy ISA, which is a historic one. Help to Buy ISA is a type of LISA, however, though, so you could not hold too often simultaneously, or at least I believe you couldn't contribute to each one in the same tax year. But anyway, you can no longer open a Help to Buy ISA. It's a LISA or nothing these days. After that, you've got a cash ISA, an innovative finance ISA, stocks and shares ISA, and the J ISA, as we said before. So what is a cash ISA? Deposit cash and receive interest. Nice and simple. The interest rate is higher when compared to what is available in current accounts, but still not that great. You're not going to be able to beat inflation with this thing. 1.5 to 1.7% at time of writing. You know, if inflation is about 7, 8, 9%, that's the stated figure that inflation is, whereas in reality it's usually higher than that. Then that means that we're not even generating a profit if we solely rely on these types of ISAs. Our real rate of capital appreciation is negative after inflation. You know, on paper it'll be going up in value, but because cash is inherently losing 7-8% of its value every year, if inflation figures stay the same as what they are persistently, the theory is that they're going to come down, but no one really quite knows on that one, given the precarious state of government debt at the minute. Now, on average, inflation is about 3-4% over the decades, but you know, the current picture is not great. With a cash ISA, like I say, you're actually accepting that you're losing your wealth by using a cash ISA, unless you're willing to go one step further and educate yourself on how to invest. I really don't think a cash ISA is a good option if you are that person who is willing to educate yourself on how to invest, because what that means is, with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of understanding, you can get rates much better than this. But of course, you must have the right time frame and you must have the right understanding in order to capitalize on that. So in my opinion, cash ISA, categorically a waste of your ISA allowance, which of course at the moment, as of the time of this video, which is the year 2022, May 2022, it would mean that you're wasting your ISA allowance of £20,000 a year, because every single pound that you put into your cash ISA is one less that you can put into your stocks and shares ISA or another type of ISA. Now, of course, there is such a thing as an ISA transfer, so you can transfer that money across to your stocks and shares ISA, but it's just creating extra legwork and headwinds where you don't need any. Innovative finance ISA, this is an unusual one. I don't really know many people who have these. I believe you have to demonstrate a specific level of financial knowledge to be able to open these. You have to be considered someone who's au fait with finance and how it works. As to whether or not that's self-proclaimed or there's some sort of exam or something that you have to sit through, I'm actually unsure on that one, but I do know that you have to be able to demonstrate some level of competence in investing before you're allowed to open one of these. Basically, what it does is it matches lenders with borrowers. Lenders receive interest, which is, of course, tax-free within the ISA. But, of course, what we have to bear in mind is if you earn under 50,270, so if your earnings are within the basic tax rate, you actually get £1,000 of interest tax free anyway. £500 is a higher income, as a higher rate tax earner. So really, in reality, is this necessarily the best thing that you want to be doing with your money and your ISA allowance? I actually don't think so. I think it's a bit needlessly complex. I think that if you wanted to earn interest, you can do it. You can earn a decent chunk tax-free anyway, probably more than you'd actually be able to earn, or at least close to it, within this ISA. So on that basis, I'm not a huge fan of innovative finance ISAs, particularly when there's simpler ways that you can use a stocks and shares ISA in order to generate meaningful wealth over time. So not a huge fan of these, but they are out there, they do exist. Stocks and shares ISA, an amazing piece of tax efficient wizardry, can deal in many assets, mainly stocks and bonds. Within these, no capital gains tax or dividend tax applies to these. Dividends tax, however, formerly did way back, not even that, maybe about 5-6 years ago. However, not anymore. So everything within your ISA is tax free, whether that be the passive income that you generate from it via dividends, or of course the capital appreciation that occurs over time and is realized once you sell these assets, all tax free. And that's the beauty of them. It's absolutely incredible piece of kit. Stocks and shares ISA, these should be our mainstay. But of course, you can't just have the stocks and shares ISA. You must know, first of all, what your time horizon is, over which period of time you actually want to be able to utilize what you've stored in there. And then second of all, when you know your time horizon, you must know the assets that you can invest in order to achieve that, and how can you maximize your returns. And that's a whole other separate conversation. But yeah, stocks and shares ISA for today, huge fan of these. They're awesome. To be honest, for me personally, it's rare as the instance where these should not be your first port of call as someone who is an investor, whether you're experienced or inexperienced. But like I say, the education that you must obtain is what you should actually purchase, what you should be purchasing inside this account, because it's not enough just to have the account in itself. Then we have a LISA. Now, these are an interesting one. I hear some people saying that they'd like to have a LISA and a stocks and shares ISA, because you can have a stocks and shares LISA as well. You take your £16,000 of your ISA allowance and put it into your stocks and shares ISA, and then you take the remaining 4,000, which is the maximum contribution that you can have to a ISA anyway, put it in there. And then what it means is that the government will automatically top that up every year with 25%, which is really cool. So it's an extra £1,000, and then you can either use that to accrue interest via a LISA, a cash LISA, or you can invest that with a stocks and shares LISA. Now, I think the conversation for me totally changes on whether or not you have your first home. If you have your first home and you're planning to buy if you don't have your first home, sorry, and you're planning to buy a house under £450,000, then these could be a good option for you. Because what it will mean is that you get 25% return in a year one investment, which is, crazy for most investments. That's really, really, really good. You can only use these after a year. You can only use this after a year of investing to be able to purchase your first home, I believe. Although I would double check that, because it could be 2 years. I'm actually going to need to look that one up. It's either a year or 2 years. But either or, a 25% return after that period of time is still a really, really, really good return, particularly if you've got, like I say, you're planning on purchasing that first house and it is under £450,000. These would be a good option for you. If, however, it's after that point, I personally would think twice about these, because with time, you'll want to be able to either use these. Basically, the two functions of a LISA are, you can either buy your first home or you can use it as a pension. Okay, in which case you can withdraw the balance at 60 years of age. However, you can only contribute up to the age of 50, I believe. So what that would mean is that you've actually got 10 years there where you can't actually contribute to this LISA. And yeah, I get it that it's acquiring 25%, at each point, each year. 25% of the 4,000 which you've initially deposited, of course, 25% each year of £4,000. So of course that does add up with time, but you won't be able to contribute towards it for those final 10 years. And those will be the years where if you can get all your savings in one account, that it'll compound at an even greater rate, which is absolutely awesome. And that's what you want to be doing. If you can get it to be concentrated. So for me, I don't really like the thought of a LISA. I think they're an extra bit of faff. You want to be concentrating your wealth in a well-invested stocks and shares ISA. Personally, particularly with time as compounding kicks in. Also, you can actually contribute to them for the last bit as well, which is annoying. Also, as well as that, if you did wish to, I just don't like the idea of not having any flexibility over my money. I think that really is an encumbrance. I think that that's a pain in the backside. And if you withdraw these before the age of 60, just to be able to use the assets within them, then you will incur a 25% levy, 25% charge, which is intended to recoup the investment that the government has placed in these accounts for you on your behalf as you've been depositing. Also, it's worth noting you can't open one when you're over 40, only between the ages of 18 and 39. So definitely worth noting is that. For me, I feel like this is just an extra way of making things unnecessarily complicated, and most people should probably stick to just having a stocks and shares ISA, unless you have yet to purchase your first home, in which case the conversation changes slightly for me personally. But yeah, something to think about. Of course, not everybody's circumstances will be reflective of what I've just described. People will always disagree with me on that. It can only ever be an opinion thing to a degree. Unless you want to sit down and crunch some numbers behind it over, numbers regarding time frame, etc. Also, as well as that, I would just bear in mind the things that I've said, and yeah, just to keep it simple, most people should probably stick to a stocks and shares ISA, but of course I can't give financial advice. And yeah, just like I said, can't contribute after the age of 50, as I was saying earlier. Not worth the faff, in my opinion. Plus, it restricts compounding in the late game. I personally would say avoid these unless it's for one of the reasons I mentioned earlier. Now, junior ISA, maximum contribution of £9,000 a year, held by a parent on a child's behalf until they're 18. Tax efficient way to pass wealth on to a child. But the thing about it is, the second that child hits 18, it's legally their money. So would you trust your child to have the confidence to be able to handle that money when they are 18? Probably a conversation that varies on a case-by-case basis. Can be a tax-efficient way to pass on your wealth to your kids. However, what I would say in this one is have a sit down with a good IFA before you consider them, as there could be another way, there could be a better way of passing on your wealth. They say inheritance tax is an optional tax if you know how to plan your affairs correctly, and that's not doing anything under the table. That's not doing anything that you shouldn't be doing. That's just having proper planning and a proper understanding of how you can invest your money and pass it on to your kids or your significant other with time. So in summary, personally, I think if you educate yourself well, there's no need to get a cash ISA. Stocks and shares ISA should be your mainstay. Then you've got your innovative finance ISA, which personally I don't think the tax wrapper, how significant it is lucrative enough to be able to be appealing, particularly when you could just be contributing all of your wealth to a stocks and shares ISA. Remember, if you're a basic rate taxpayer, you get £1,000 worth of tax-free interest anyway. Then LISA, of course, case-by-case basis. Junior ISA, used for passing our wealth on to kids, but is it always the best way of doing it? I definitely would have a conversation with a professional on that one first. Should minimizing inheritance tax and should maximizing your ability to pass on wealth to your kids be something that you're thinking about. See you next week. Thank you for your time.